Hey guys, I just want to share with you about the mystery glyphs and some of my research. As I travel all across the western United States, searching out the locations and clues to the mystery glyphs, I kept hearing the same things over and over again from the scholarly and rock art communities. The mystery glyphs aren't Indian, so they have to be modern and or a hoax. Growing up in Utah and seeing thousands of Indian petroglyphs throughout my lifetime, I had to agree with them at least on one of their points. The mystery glyphs weren't anything like the Indian petroglyphs I'd been used to seeing. Then one day, while I was thumbing through one of my boys' Cub Scout manuals, I was shocked to find some drawings of the mystery glyph symbols in one of the manuals. This was in a section teaching the boys all about Indian Sign Language. And as I researched this source, I learned that it came from William Tompkins' little book called Indian Sign Language. This book was originally published in the 1930s and has been reprinted several times and is still available from Dover Publishing today. Tompkins had a fascination with the Native Americans. He studied George Copway's book published in 1850 entitled The Traditional History and Characteristic Sketches of the Ojibwa Nation. One of the subjects Copway wrote about was the ancient sacred records and pictorial language that was passed down for over 100 generations to only a select few of the most trusted braves. Copway was the chief of the Ojibwa Nation, and he never knew anything about this until his uncle's best friend shared this information with him, as he had been one of the chosen few to learn the guarded secret mysteries. Tompkins also studied Henry Schoolcraft's huge 7-volume book set titled Archives of Aboriginal Knowledge, which contains more material. However, most of the relevant sections, those with mystery glyph-like symbols, are covered by Garrick Mallory and William Tompkins. Later on in the late 1800s, Tompkins went and lived with the Indians to learn more about their traditions, but what fascinated him the most was the way the different tribes with different languages could still communicate with sign language and the pictorial language of the ancients. Tompkins eventually ended up finding a few of the older Indians that he communicated with using the ancient language. Like I said at the beginning of this, I kept hearing the same thing over and over again. They're not Indian, so they have to be modern. Yet here we have documented proof from the mid-1800s stating that these types of symbols are part of an ancient language that were known and used probably by the medicine men or shamans of the Indian tribe. Armed with this new information, I went back to the different individuals telling me they were modern to show them what I had found. Then I started hearing that the publications by these authors of the several Indian petroglyph symbols, identical or similar to some of the mystery glyphs, was justification for their positions that the mystery glyph panels are modern in nature and that their symbols were allegedly copied from the books. Some extended this idea and claimed the published material proves the mystery glyphs were copied or plagiarized from modern publications. However, that's unjustifiable for two very good reasons. One, it could only be true if the symbols didn't exist prior to the publications, which of course was certainly not the case. The symbols in published literature clearly show they were in existence and in use by certain Indians long before they ever found their way into the 19th century books. According to tradition, they were passed down from prehistoric times, eventually to the Indian sources Schoolcraft and Copway used. 2. Copway suggests that there are over 200 of these symbols, yet he only shows us a handful in his publications. To date, there is way more than 200 different symbols used in the mystery glyphs panels, far more than is shown in all the published publications combined. Also, the mystery glyphs only contain about 20% of the published symbols. I would think if someone were going to perpetrate a hoax using these published symbols as their base, they would have at least used the majority of the known symbols instead of making up their own. But despite the fact that several of the mystery glyphs are found among the symbols in these literatures, none of the mystery glyph panels have been successfully interpreted, let alone consistently from panel to panel using the published meanings which were assigned to the symbols. Because of the prior existence that includes some of them in lists of authentic signs demonstrates the published literature does serve to establish that at least some of the mystery glyph symbols, those included in the list, were used by Native Americans prior to and up to the 1800s and probably much earlier. It seems unquestioned today that meanings of the symbols given in the 1800s literature are all correct, but that assumption's not well founded, since so few sources exist, only a couple which are generally cited for the meanings. Nearly all the Indian-sourced meanings we have for the symbols, especially referring to the mystery glyph symbols in the list, were set down by Copway, with limited examples, or Schoolcraft. Mallory and Tompkins, with some exceptions, are largely just repetitions of Copway's and Schoolcraft, without very much original investigation of the meanings in the case of the included mystery glyph symbols. To what extent the different Indian tribes of the mid-1800s would have actually endorsed or disagreed with the published meanings we have seems unknowable today using academic sources, since there seems to be significant variances in the meanings of some of the symbols from tribe to tribe, as is evident by stick figure of a man with a line through his head. Copway says it means sick, while Tompkins says it means white man, even when they stem from the same common or related root idea. It should be considered that the originally intended mystery glyphs meanings may not even have been known to native tribes in the 1800s or even much earlier, but originating far enough back so that the meanings of the mystery glyphs had changed with time, or other circumstances sufficient to make them unreadable by later Indians. Other circumstances include being made by members of a tribe who assign particular unique meanings to them, which is certainly suggested by the linear style as opposed to the cluster relationship found in most petroglyph panels, the later demonstrated by Levan Martineau, but whose presence in the region was temporary or exclusionary, or a tribe that existed for a period but disappeared at some point for other reasons. It's my hope that doing this video that the statement they're not Indian, therefore they have to be modern, has been disproved. I have tracked down and verified that they are at least 100 to 150 years old. I have newspaper articles from the 40s, 50s, and 60s stating that they looked old back when some of the different sites were being found or reported. How much older than the 150 years, if any, is anybody's guess, but I personally think they could be older. But at the very least, they were made in the late 1800s and are historic and need to be valued and protected as such. I've come across several reports that state that people have come across a petroglyph panel that looks modern in nature because of the straight lines and the hieroglyphic symbols that they've been written with. They don't look anything like the Indian petroglyphs they've been used to seeing, so they just dismiss them as cowboy scratchings or a modern-day hoax and never properly record or report them. If we could get out the idea to the different individuals and rock art groups throughout the country that there is a basis for the mystery glyphs to be seriously researched, studied, and documented, then there's no doubt in my mind then we can come up with more than the 38 site locations that are presently known today. When more of these sites are found, we've got a better chance of discovering who carved these mystery glyphs and why, and what the message says that they thought was important enough that they had to neatly and painstakingly carve them into stone in remote locations. If you happen to see any symbols like this scattered in your travels and your treasure hunting, I don't think they have anything to do with treasure, but I do think they have a spirituality connection with the Native Americans. Please report them and let me know their locations so we can have more chance of researching and figuring out who wrote these and why. Thanks, and with that said, that's a wrap.